Welcome back to our channel, where we share the most intriguing tales of malicious compliance. Today, we have an exciting lineup of 4 gripping stories that showcase the power of standing up for oneself in the face of adversity. So sit back, relax, and prepare to be inspired by our latest compilation of stories. The first story, Malicious Compliance, where want to chew me out for your mistake then ask me to go against your own rules? Okay. I used to work as a customer service representative for a popular online retailer. One day, I received a call from a customer who was upset that her package had been delayed. I apologized and assured her that I would do my best to resolve the issue. After a few minutes of looking into the problem, I discovered that the delay was caused by the customer's mistake. She had provided an incorrect shipping address. I explained the situation to the customer and asked her to provide the correct address so that we could send the package to the right location. However, instead of acknowledging her mistake and providing the correct address, the customer became irate and started yelling at me. "You're incompetent," she shouted. "How could you mess up such a simple task? I demand that you fix this right now." I tried to remain calm and professional, but the customer's verbal abuse was starting to take its toll. Just as I was about to lose my temper, the customer asked me to do something that was against the company's policy. "Can you just send the package to the address I originally provided?" she asked. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This customer was berating me for her mistake, and now she was asking me to violate the company's policy. I decided to use a tactic called malicious compliance to teach the customer a lesson. "Sure, I can do that," I said, with a sly grin on my face. I went ahead and changed the shipping address back to the one the customer had provided. The package was sent to the wrong address, and the customer was forced to wait even longer for her order. When the customer called back to complain about the mistake, I calmly reminded her that she had asked me to violate the company's policy. I also informed her that we would be unable to resend the package until it was returned to us by the wrong address. The customer was humiliated and apologized for her behavior. Lesson learned: don't ask someone to go against their own rules just because it's more convenient for you. And don't be surprised when your actions have consequences. The second story, being sick with COVID must be a vacation. Last year, I contracted COVID-19 and had to take several weeks off from work to recover. Despite feeling physically and emotionally drained, I was shocked by the reactions of some of my colleagues. One coworker made a snide comment about how lucky I was to be able to take a vacation from work. Another accused me of faking my illness to get out of work. I was hurt and angry by their comments. I had never taken a sick day in my entire time at the company, and now that I was genuinely ill, my colleagues were accusing me of being lazy and deceitful. To make matters worse, when I returned to work, I was bombarded with a pile of unfinished projects that had been neglected during my absence. Despite my best efforts to catch up, I was constantly reminded of how much work had piled up while I was out sick. But instead of getting angry or frustrated, I decided to take a different approach. I focused on my health and took the time I needed to fully recover from COVID-19. I also took a step back from my work and reassessed my priorities. When I finally returned to my normal workload, I did so with a renewed sense of purpose and a greater appreciation for my own well-being. I learned that taking care of myself was just as important as taking care of my job. In the end, my coworkers' negative attitudes toward my illness taught me a valuable lesson about the importance of self-care and empathy in the workplace. The third story, the 27-hour shift. As a medical resident, I knew that long hours and grueling shifts were a part of the job. But one shift in particular will always stand out in my memory. I was scheduled to work a 24-hour shift at the hospital, but due to unforeseen circumstances, I ended up working an additional 3 hours beyond that. By the time I finally clocked out, I had been awake and on my feet for 27 hours straight. I was physically and mentally exhausted, and the thought of driving home was daunting. But when I asked my supervisor if I could take a break or leave early, I was met with a stern no. Apparently, there was a staffing shortage, and I was expected to tough it out. Feeling frustrated and powerless, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I went to the hospital's HR department and filed a complaint about the unsafe working conditions and lack of support for medical residents. I also made sure to document the hours I had worked, as well as any mistakes or oversights that occurred due to my exhaustion. Thanks to my advocacy and the efforts of my fellow residents, the hospital implemented new policies to prevent such extreme working conditions from happening again. And while I still faced backlash and criticism from some of my colleagues, I knew that I had stood up for myself and for the safety of those around me. The fourth story, being 1 minute late equals being out for the day, so I'll take the day off. In my previous job, punctuality was highly valued. If you were even a minute late to work, you were considered tardy and could be sent home for the day without pay. One day, I woke up feeling under the weather and struggled to get out of bed. By the time I arrived at work, I was exactly 1 minute late. My supervisor promptly sent me home and told me that I wouldn't be paid for the day. Feeling frustrated and powerless, I decided to turn the situation around to my advantage. Instead of feeling sorry for myself or begging for forgiveness, I decided to take the day off and use it as an opportunity to recharge and reflect on my priorities. I spent the day doing things that made me happy and relaxed, like reading a book, going for a walk in the park, and catching up with a friend over lunch. I also used the time to think about my career goals and whether or not my current job was aligned with them. By the end of the day, I felt more centered and refreshed than I had in a long time. I also realized that being forced to take a day off had given me a chance to slow down and reevaluate what was truly important to me. From then on, I made a conscious effort to prioritize my well-being and my career goals, even if it meant taking a day off here and there. And while my supervisor never changed their strict policies on punctuality, I knew that I had the power to turn a negative situation into a positive one. That's all for today, folks. We hope you enjoyed these captivating tales of malicious compliance and the power of standing up for oneself. If you want to hear more stories like these, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for your daily dose of inspiration. Until next time.